Well, welcome to another one of Wisdom's interviews. And I was saying to Kelly that the purpose behind these interviews is really to highlight people's stories and to recognize that everybody has this amazing, unique story that's also filled with ups and downs, the normal pace of life. And Kelly and I met, this is the amazing thing about these times is that you connect with people that you would never normally have connected with. And so Kelly's sitting across a continent and an ocean in the UK. And here I am in South Africa, and we were just, I guess, referred. You met my business partner, I think, Kelly, and then he referred me. And so that's, you get these sort of roundabouts. And so Kelly and I had a great chat a little while ago, and I said, oh, love to interview you. So Kelly, thank you for connecting again and being willing to share a little bit about who you are. So Kelly is somebody who is passionate and interested in entrepreneurship and entrepreneurs, and has started her own business to help and guide entrepreneurs, seeing where the gap is in where entrepreneurs perhaps are not quite meeting the mark, and is helping them. So so you've chosen to work with entrepreneurs, Kelly. Why? What is it about entrepreneurship and entrepreneurs that is something that draws you into that environment?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And to be honest, I have been into entrepreneurship since I was young. Like myself, the stories in school of selling things, I did that. But the hilarious thing was I'm also a musician. I used to sell drumsticks to people that didn't play drums, and they would buy them. It was really, really fun. So I've always had kind of a natural inclination towards business and stuff like that. But it's actually my journey that's kind of catapulted or diverted me towards actually working with entrepreneurs, because I worked on projects. I had this kind of time in life where I was working on projects where I always felt like I got there too late. So things had happened and they had affected kind of the future of the project. And I always felt like if I had got there before, maybe this wouldn't, I would have spoken up about this thing and maybe been able to prevent effectively either the failure of a project, or for helping it to just happen in a better way. And that's what I love. I love building things well. So I think it's actually, just as much my journey as well as my natural kind of, inclination towards business and making money, that's kind of guided me to work with entrepreneurs and to effectively try to get there before the thing is built. And everybody knows when you build things foundationally, if the foundation is right, you stand a much better chance of being able to build the whole construct. The foundation's wrong, and this is also why I work so much with startups.
Myself, I really you identified your strength, which is to somehow, it seems to me that you're able to see what a project looks like, that you've got a vision, you've got a picture that says this is what the end that we have in mind. If we use Stephen Covey's terminology, you've got the end in mind, and you could sort of see the steps to get there. That's a strength and a skill and an ability, which I'm sure you're honing, but it's also a sort of natural ability, and that you are transferring that into the realm of specifically startups, and wanting to get there earlier enough that you can see the path and help with the path. So maybe just speak a little bit more about what is it that you actually do to help startups?
Yeah, so it is actually around kind of what you said. So road mapping and strategizing is where I started. So being able to come into a project and say, you know, this is what your next step should be. Stop doing everything at once. Focus on this, this next step. And being able to map out kind of what the journey is, you know, is supposed to be. So it's mainly, my work has mainly been around, you know, strategy development, and, you know, I kind of touched all areas of the business to make, you know, make that happen. It's not specifically sales and not marketing. It's not anything like that. It's like the whole holistic vision of what it is you're trying to do. This is kind of, you know, how you should go about it. And then off the back of that, my work kind of, you know, moving into Africa, and I know that you wanted to, you know, speak about this a bit later on, but I identified a point where I thought, well, where I could see that entrepreneurs were missing intel, and it was around the whole raising capital part. So now that's come into play, where it's about educating, you know, founders and founders that are raising on exactly what the investment readiness, you know, part looks like. So yeah, that's also kind of come into the mix as well.
You've highlighted for me before that that entrepreneurs perhaps overestimate their readiness to pitch to investors, and that you besides the road mapping, and I love that word because it just really does help picture the process, doesn't it? Because yes, you want the big picture and the vision and the strategy, but how do I actually get there? But that there's this core component of investor readiness. So what are some of the things that you're seeing that startups are not doing well to be ready for investors?
Yeah, that's a good question, and there are a few key things. I remember one of the first startups I worked with in this area, and where I really began to realize that there's something here. I requested some documents, some financial kind of cash flow forecasts and things like that, and also reports, you know, the accounting kind of, you know, reports and stuff. And it took 6 months to get at, like, firstly, and then when I got them, the figures weren't that, like, it wasn't done properly. So for example, you're in the midst of raising a round, right, where investors need to see your numbers, but you're raising without your numbers firstly, and then when you do come with your numbers, they're not correct. How is somebody meant to make a decision about placing their actual hard-earned cash with you when they can't see your numbers and they can't do the maths? Do you know what I mean? Things like that. I was like, guys, or with this particular founder as well, I was like, it's not gonna work. You have to put yourself in their shoes, you know, in just a very basic way first, and then go from there. So, and other things is around kind of looking at the market, benchmarking what ROIs are looking like within your market and within your industry, and seeing whether you can meet that. Because at the end of the day, you're not the only person that is raising capital, and for investors that are just looking to make sure that they have a return, you know, within, you know, X amount of years, you want to be able to make sure you're competitive in the investment space, as well as, you know, creating a business that is sustainable. So yeah, so that's a few of, you know, just a few of the things. There are more, but yeah, it's just around even in conversations, you know, and I remember having a conversation about how much does it cost you to acquire a customer, and the founder couldn't tell me. And I was like, so if the capital comes, right, you raise the money, How are you going to spend it? You're saying you're going to meet X amount of new users, but you don't know how much it costs you to get one new user. So you don't know how much it costs you to then get X amount of users. So how do you know your money's not going to run out? You know, just things like that, and being able to break down exactly what needs to happen, like how much each part of it costs to get to that next stage of growth. That, you know, there's a fair few things around it, but when you have that, you know, correct, and when what I've learned is when you understand who it is you're speaking to, the position that they're in, as far as a founder speaking to an investor, the position that they're in, it really helps you to figure this out, not just how you present yourself, but making sure that what you're presenting is actually as refined as it can be.
It's such an important point, isn't it? That I think my business is amazing. I've proven it in so many ways, and I've got this amazing concept, and I know if they just see my passion and my commitment, what more do they want?
Yeah, right.
I think the point that I get from what you're saying, Kelly, is that it's about putting yourself in the investor's shoes. Like, I need a return on my investment. How are you going to assure me that you're a safe bet? And I think that's where your help is going to be so important, Kelly, because as founders, our first interest is in what we do, not in the figures. And, you know, that's not necessarily where people's strengths lie.
Yeah.
And so they would need for somebody like yourself to come alongside to say, well, okay, if you don't know how to figure out what it costs to get a customer, well, this is how you will, you know, and just to help them guide them through that process. So important. Thank you. Yay. Somebody's doing it.
Yes, 100%.
And Kelly, you mentioned that you work a lot in Africa. How did that come about, and whereabouts specifically are you talking about?
Yes, yeah. So that was pretty interesting. I have been based just, you know, here in the UK, just outside of London for, you know, my whole life. And I was working on a project 5 years ago with a startup, actually, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, maybe, that was based here in my area. But they were building a project for the Nigerian market, a product, sorry, for the Nigerian market. They themselves were Nigerians in diaspora. So I come into this startup. It's a great product. Well, it's a great concept, should I say. The product wasn't built as planned. Once again, the product development happened, begun 8 months before I got there. So by the time I got there, this product was already kind of, you know, supposed to be ready to kind of be launching. And it wasn't, you know, up to scratch. So we had to kind of, you know, do a lot of work there. But like I said, this was, you know, for the Nigerian market. So there was a lot of work that needed to be done as far as market research, as far as, you know, building partnerships. So I basically just ended up building a lot of, you know, a bit of a network within Nigeria for the sake of this, you know, this product and this startup. And when it got to the point where the startup kind of needed to, you know, raise funds and things kind of needed to, you know, be put on pause, and the founder decided to do that. My next project off the back of that, and I'm still connected to this, but my next project off the back of that came through that network. So people, you know, I was just making, you know, I was just making friends really, and just, you know, people could see that I was, you know, working on this project and that I was, you know, adding value here. And when they heard that, you know, the project was kind of put on pause and there were some things that needed to be done in, you know, behind the scenes, you know, they reached out, oh, can you help me with this? Can you help me with this? And it just kind of went from there really. So I ended up being more active in Africa from the UK than actually in the UK, because that's just where the traction was. And that's where I, really began to see where, firstly, obviously the differences in even our infrastructures and the rest, but really was able to, I think, find there was definitely there's been a place for me, if that makes sense, because there are ways of which we do things over here and navigate even within entrepreneurship that over there is still quite new, and still maybe not as refined and as tight as over here. So I've been able to share that intel and kind of help.
And it's the story of networking, isn't it? Is that and entrepreneurship is that you take a step, and that step leads to the next, and so I think it is that spirit of openness, isn't it, to the possibilities and what doors open, and sometimes we find ourselves in places we never anticipated, but we love it anyway. So some things can be planned, but some things are, you sort of weaving your way, aren't you? Yeah,
exactly. And you don't know that you're doing it as well.
Right. And that's actually what I wanted to find out a little bit more about, Kelly, and that's your own journey as an entrepreneur. I mean, you running businesses that, because I think you've got a couple of businesses that you've got partners with and so on. So what's the business like? What's the entrepreneur life like for you? Tell us a little bit about the sort of ups and downs of being an entrepreneur yourself.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think one of the main things that we've kind of, leads on nicely is the fact that I'm in teams that are far away from where I physically am. So that comes with its own, I guess, disadvantages, in the sense that, it's nice to be in the same room, sometimes when you're working on things. And that is definitely something where I'm looking forward to, obviously, with lockdown, lifting and travel bans, reversing and things like that, being able to actually be in the room with some of, my teams and stuff. But yeah, we do have multiple, I'm involved in multiple projects on the continent, a venture studio. We're, trying to get started, this investment readiness and capital raising agency. And yeah, and then in the UK also, I kind of was consulting in the UK a bit before, the work in Africa. So I still have, some work there as well. But yeah, it's been an interesting journey. I think the other main thing that has definitely, where I am now, which has definitely been challenging, is growing a team, and making that first hire really count. And making sure as well that the people that you have, you're just really bringing in talent and filling gaps within, what you know is needed to make the project really fly. So yeah, my journey has been fun, and it's not conventional. It's definitely not conventional, the setup that I have, but at the same time, it's definitely works for me, and it definitely feels, it feels right.
Yeah, and that's part of an entrepreneur's life as well, isn't it? Is that you see the problem and you solve it in innovative ways, which is, the point is not to be conventional, because you don't want to do the same thing that others might have done. One, because you want to differentiate yourself, but two, because you want to bring something unique, and that is going to solve a problem that may, in ways that maybe other people haven't thought of. So yeah, so that makes a lot of sense. As you were talking, I thought, I'm going to put Kelly on the spot. Because I was wondering, this old adage about the plumber or the electrician, that their plumbing and electricity is is terrible. So what happens, very good at doing other people's stuff, but not very good at doing it at home. So I was thinking, so Kelly, how investment ready are you finding yourself, and how are you road mapping yourself in your own business? Is it a case of I do it very well for others, but I'm sort of running ragged on my own?
That is a very good question. So at the moment, or I kind of have to speak about, I guess, individual projects. But I'm not in a position, thank God, of needing external capital on any project so far. But it's funny, I was just having this thought this morning about how you should ultimately know before you start a project when you're going to need external capital, like and obviously I meet a lot of founders that run out of money and then want to raise capital, and things like this you should really know from the beginning. But I'm actually quite a stickler for road mapping. I'm such a stickler for road mapping that it's actually the reason why sometimes I move at such a slow pace in the beginning, because I really want to make sure that I've accounted for everything that is going to be needed, and seeing how. Sorry, I thought I had my niece. It's a video. That could happen basically if my plans don't, if things don't go to plan. Like, I've got a contingency plan basically for different outcomes. So I've been quite fortunate that on both of the projects I've been working on in the West, in West Africa, they have good teams. So yeah, that's the most important thing, especially in the beginning, is having people that you're working with that are good at what they do and everybody shares the same vision. And actually a bit of a funny story behind that. I reached out to someone reached out to me, on LinkedIn. We had a conversation, and this was about 6 months ago. And we clicked. Like, we really clicked. We saw, see the world in the same way, had the same aspirations for the continent. And we had a really great conversation. Off the back of that conversation, we didn't know exactly how we was going to work together. We could just both sense that we was going to work together. And then 2 months after that, I met a guy on LinkedIn that I saw him first, and I said, something's telling me I need to speak to this guy. He was doing a lot around bringing investment capital into the continent, into Nigeria specifically. So I spoke to him, and the same thing happened. Like, it was that click. And then I found out a few weeks later that they were business partners. And it was like, dude, like, I didn't even know that they knew each other. And it was only through, I was speaking to this other guy, and he was saying, oh yeah, these are my projects. And he mentioned one, and I was like, oh, I think I know someone on there. And I said it, he was like, yeah, that's my business partner. I was like, oh my gosh, that's, you know what I mean? So being with great people. And then when we first had our conversation as a trio, it was like, yeah, this makes sense. And things kind of, moved from there to be in a place where, we've got a project now that we're working on together. So yeah, that's kind of a bit of just to say that working with, the right people really is important in the beginning. And then, yeah, having the access to the resource that you need. I'm blessed that at the moment we don't need much. But in the future, I'm definitely ready for as far as my own plans. I'm more of a stickler with myself than I am with the people that I work with. And that's because, you have to be. You have to be. So yeah, I'm definitely ready.
Well, I love that. I love that you eat your own food, you that you actually, so what you share is what you eat. I think that's a really good principle in life, is that we practice what we preach.
Oh, 100.
But I also love the story of you know, you're such a, as you say, road mapping is so important, and the planning and the, you know, and yet you tell the story of these serendipities where you know, you meet people and suddenly there's this incredible coincidence of like-mindedness connecting people in incredible ways. And it is also that intuition, isn't it? That, so yes, there's the planning, but there's also this little gut feel that is part of connecting and following a hunch or a sense that you're describing. It's exciting.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the way that I see it as well, because I'm a very spirit-led person, very, you know, intuitive, and I have over the years really got out of my mind. I've always been a planner, but I've learned that the visions and the, you know, the projects and stuff that is, you know, on my heart, it spans a lifetime for a start, and there will be more, you know what I mean, as time goes on and life evolves, you know, things change. So I really learned not to like grab onto, you know, to the thing, and just to let it breathe. And this idea, you know, around the venture studio with these guys, this is something that we all are passionate about, startups, and all bring different skills to the table. And that's when, you know, when we connected and we really started to think about, you know, what it looks like or what it could look like. You know, I find that the plan is about infrastructure. It supports the build. You know, when you have an awesome idea, it is really the plan that determines like how, you know, what the build actually is. For example, like architecture, right? You can't just say, oh yeah, I want a house, right? Like you're gonna need to really draw and, you know, down to the finest detail what it's going to be, so that when you actually start, you know exactly what you're doing. So I find that, yeah, that kind of serendipitous part for me is always like in the connection of the dots, and then that plan really determines how we're going to do this.
Wonderful, 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 wonderful. So you've got this picture of the plan, and you've got it. So where are you heading? What is it going to look like? What is the Kelly Sinclair going to look like in your various projects and enterprises that you're involved in 5, 10, 50 years time?
That is a very good question. Well, yeah, I think me, if we're speaking, you know, well, I can speak personally, and then for the projects also. Personally, I, you know, am evolving. I have been evolving for a while, but definitely through this pandemic, there's been a level of acceleration. And I think with me, always kind of, you know, being a strategist, I'm looking forward to kind of, you know, taking a lot of ownership over the things that I personally am creating, and the effect that it has in, you know, in the space that I'm in, so in West Africa, and, you know, hopefully all of Africa. So as far as the projects, like at the moment, we are starting mainly in Nigeria and West Africa, but hoping to really like take root, especially with, you know, the investment readiness side of things. Like this is something that I really want to draw attention to. Like within the startup ecosystem, it's VCs historically that had a consultative element to them that has been lost in the chasing of returns, you know. And now I feel like it is a third party thing, you know, that comes in to support, you know, founders, like I guess in the connection between, you know, founders and investors. And I really just want to draw attention to this, you know, investment readiness piece for upcoming entrepreneurs, for people that are already entrepreneurs, to understand that this is literally the difference between you catapulting your business forward in a lot of, you know, in a lot of ways, and, you know, because you need capital to grow, and staying where you are, basically. And yeah, for the, for that project in particular, like I really want that to, take root, and I want the knowledge to really, spread across the continent. And the good thing is that, in this virtual world, it's a lot harder to reach, more, entrepreneurs in multiple countries on the continent, at once. So I'm not just going to say, this is just for Nigerian entrepreneurs. No, it's not. And the only reason why I'm not thinking completely globally with it is because elements of this and this particular thing, for example, in the UK, it's a lot more known and it's a lot more, valued, and it's really built in, because we've got, businesses that are looking at Silicon Valley and, in these kind of, places, and they do kind of have quite a high standard for readiness, in order to, to get the money that they need, and they also raise in at higher figures and higher valuations. So yeah, bringing that onto the continent, I think is going to be really pivotal part, especially at a time when more capital is coming into the country and more investor interest is, there's more investors looking at Africa now than there has ever been, so now it's like, okay, the money's coming, make sure you're ready.
Yeah, I think that's, in I do feel like it's Africa's moment to shine, and the Africa Free Trade Agreement is opening doors within Africa. At least we trust and we hope that people are seeing that as an advantage, that Africa can actually, yes, it's exciting to think of foreign investment and eyes coming onto Africa, and yes, we need that investment, but with African solutions for African people. And so I think that, and that's not to say we don't want you, Kelly. It feels like you've invested so much of yourself here. So lovely to think of, as you say, there's a richness of resources and information that you have, based where you are, and the background that you've had, that you're now transferring, and we are behind the curve. So good to be playing catch up, and I guess it's on us now that we fast track ourselves, and move forward as quickly as we can. There's such huge potential, and that's what I'm hearing your excitement about in Africa, is that we've just got this incredible potential that is ripe and ready, and just needs to be guided and informed, and being given the right knowledge and tools to be able to take it forward. So glad you're on our team.
Yeah, it's definitely fun, and exactly what you said. I say it's a bit graphic, but the head is kind of crowning, I think, in Africa as far as entrepreneurship. People look at the pay stacks, the Andelas, and they see like, okay, this can be done. This has been happening in Silicon Valley, but it can be done here, and it should be. There's so many, like you said, so many solutions yet to be brought forth, and it's about, like you said, having the resources to do that, knowing exactly how to overcome, the hurdles that transform your business from, a small startup into a scale up, into a unicorn, as they say. And yeah, I want to definitely be a part of not just looking for unicorns, as is commonly known, but actually building them and transforming the idea, that idea into, and look, there are many companies that can effectively achieve that level of growth and that level of market penetration, usability, however you want to say. But it's about that process. Every single unicorn started as a startup. That's the truth. Everyone starts small, and it's about how you navigate those, the growth.
Yeah, and those are just those. We love those stories, don't we? Steve Jobs sitting in his garage. Bill Gates. slogging away at some university library. There was, yeah, these are the things that we like to remember, because sometimes we lose track of the beginning. We were all startups. So Kelly, we're coming to an end, and what I wanted just to say to you is, I know you're sitting in the UK, but your heart is a lot in Africa. So I'm hoping that, and then you're going to, I know once travel's allowed and everything, and Nigeria is more than likely going to be your first port of call, but please keep South Africa in mind.
Yeah.
I know it's a long way down the bottom end, but it'll be lovely to have you come and visit and share your passion and knowledge and tools, and it's exactly what we need. So thank you for sharing with us, and just know that you're just gonna fly.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. And I will definitely bear South Africa in mind. I might just do a bit of an African tour while I'm there, considering to make up for all the travel that hasn't been happening.
There you go. There you go. Do a whole continental round trip.
Sounds like a perfect plan to me.
Nice. Nice. Lovely. Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you.